So we're getting ready to do this new install, and when you're doing this new install, we're gonna have plugs in both sides of your pocket. So throw a handful of males in one side of the pocket, throw a handful of females in the other side of the pocket. You wanna come loaded with binder clips. Always have a few extra binder clips in a separate pocket. And then you also want to grab a few extra best clips as well. And you just throw those in one of your pockets. So you always want to have an extra couple. And then the most important part is a set of pliers. Don't lose these because you need them. Then I always like to take a few extra slider caps for your plugs. And I always put those in a extra pocket as well, or a different pocket rather, so they're easily accessible. I need my stack ladders. And then our extension cord. Got some extra scrap extension cord we're gonna try to use. And we'll finish off this roll. So we've already confirmed, hopefully, through the homeowner that outlet works. We'll talk to her about it, but I was thinking we'll run main power from here around here, and we'll inline off to get power to our columns. So we'll get power to that column, run it along here, and that's our line one. We'll come across here, hit this peak, that peak, run an extension cord up that back peak. We're going on those back gutters, going back to the roof we already talked about. Yep. And then run an extension down from that one to get us power to here. And then this will be all one strand, and we'll throw an inline off the front peak to get us power to the back peak. And then we'll finish on lower garage side. And then as far as our ground lighting, we're doing an inside branch wrap up 15 feet high on this, 2 stacks high. We had already talked to the customer. She wants us to power in this. We're mini lighting those hedges right there in front of the garage, and then C9 yard stake. So we kind of already talked about it, but we'll grab power. We're going to draw that C9 yard stake from that main extension cord. We're going to put an inline on the main extension cord to get us power to the C9 yard stakes, and the C9 yard stakes is going to come all the way around and end over by the driveway. And then we'll also just kind of pull power from this C9 yard stake to get us power to this tree for this fella. An inline right here for Jesus and Mary. And then we'll have to figure out something there. I'm thinking what we're going to do for these hedges is we'll probably drop an inline down from the downspout to give us power there. Luckily, we already have pre-bulbed C9 clips right now. Obviously, if we didn't have any of these, we had already prepped for the job prior to this. So keep that in mind. Obviously, we'd be here a lot longer if we had to sit here and individually bulb and clip all of these. So we already have a couple of strands ready to go. Right here, we're going to add a female onto the end of this. I reach in my one pocket that has the females and little slider caps. Okay. You always want to snake tongue your wire. You have 2 sets of wires here, or 2 sides of the wire. You have your ribbed end, which I don't know if you could see in that video very well, and then you have your smooth end. Okay. And what also you have on these plugs is these little vampire teeth. So if you look closely, you have one tooth on one side of the wire and one tooth or plug, and then another tooth on the other side of the plug. They're on opposite sides. Every now and again, there's manufacturing defects where these plugs are on the same side of the wire. That's not good. That's going to trip your GFI and cause power issues. So you always want to double check to make sure there's no defects in the actual plug. Your ribbed end lines up with your fat polarized part of your plug. The smooth end goes on the skinnier part. You notice this side's thicker, this side's thinner. So your ribbed end always matches up with your fat end. So if you look at this plug here, you got the fat end right here, You flip it around, it lines up with this tooth here. So I know my ribbed end has to go on the left side of this plug. So I already snake tongued the wire. Push it all the way down. And we're good to go. I'm gonna add that. Perfect. Hi Lindley, I'm Scott from Torch Window Cleaning. Nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you too. This is Ryan.
Nice to meet you.
We're here to install the Christmas lights. And I just wanted to confirm a couple things before we get started. So per our work order, it looks like we're doing the front roof line. We're doing all warm white.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing the front roof line along the gutters and peaks, and then on the lower garage side.
Okay.
We're also going to do C9 yard stakes outlining the landscape bed.
Okay.
We're lighting this beautiful tree right here. It looks like we're going to go up 15 feet high according to the work order, so it's going to be nice and beautiful on that one.
Great.
In addition to that, we're also going to light the hedges in front of the garage.
Perfect.
Is that what we signed up for? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, perfect. Did you have any other requests while we're here?
Maybe just if you could just integrate those two yard pieces right there, that would be great.
Of course,
And
yeah.
then I just was wondering what you would need for power.
Absolutely. So we can absolutely plug those right into our current lights, so that's not an issue. So that would avoid running your own extension cord. We can have it all plugged into one. And then we were planning on using this one. This is ever so beautifully located right next to your front door. So does this outlet work?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I just didn't know if you needed any other ones in the garage.
Nope, nope. Just this one outlet will work. What often I do like to explain though to customers is sometimes this outlet is on a switch on the inside. So I don't know if it's associated with any switch. Are you familiar?
It's not associated with a switch.
Okay.
But then can I put it on a timer?
Yep, we're going to put it on a timer. And actually, I'm going to explain that to you at the end of the job and run you through that. What time did you want your lights to come on and off? Obviously at nighttime, so somewhere around 4:30. What time, I guess more specifically, did you want them off? They are LED, so they draw very little power.
Right.
Most people get them done, dusk till dawn, so all night, but some people don't want them up on all night because they're really bright. So if you want them shut off at a certain time, we can make that happen.
What do most people do?
Most people do dusk till dawn on all night, but we could program it to, turn on and off at any time you want.
Yeah, let's do dusk till dawn.
Okay, so we'll set them on, say, 4:30. I know the sun is kind of changing this time of year, so it's going to set a little bit later, in a month and a half. So we'll set them at like 4:45 till, and we'll shut them off at 7:30 a.m. or so.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, perfect. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so.
No? And Lindley, at the end of the service, we're going to come out here. I'm going to explain the timer to you and then just kind of make sure you're happy with everything, show you how the lights work. And then I'm also going to explain how all the extension cords are ran through your landscaping beds in the event that you plan on doing any yard cleanup or you hire some landscapers or snow blowings, etc. Yep.
Snow blow on this walkway here.
So we'll talk about that before we leave. So are you going to be around the whole time?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Give us a few hours. We should have everything lit up and we'll look forward to lighting it up for you.
Okay.
So when we are running our main extension line, you always want to install it the female first. Every single cord should have a male and every single cord should have a female. Your extension cord always only has one male, always. It should never have more than one male. Your extension cords, however, and C9 cords can have as many females as possible. But at the very least, it always should have one male and should end with a female. So when I'm installing the main extension cord, I'm gonna start here and then run my line back to the power outlet because that will make sure you're lined up. So how we're installing this is I'm just trying to keep it away from the actual flow of water because you don't want these plugs to be sitting in a pile of water, otherwise it's going to cause tripping. So we're just neatly tucking this right behind this gutter here. And then Ryan, let's just continue running this to the main power. And if you have to, a little tip and trick is you could take one of your C9 best clips. What you don't want to do is have this nice and loosey-goosey like that because the wind is going to be troublesome. So you can just take one of your best clips and stick it right behind here. Now, whenever we're installing extension cord, because we're lighting up these columns, you always want to put a little slack in your ear. We call them cow tails or cow ears, for example. So we're going to put an inline right here And we're simply just gonna give about that much slack so we always know we have enough. All right, so a little cow ear there. Continue running that. A little cow ear here. Again, you're doing this just for extra slack. And then what do you know? Lines up perfectly. So we're gonna throw a male on that.
Now, Scott, do you give yourself a little bit of extra slack in general to
Always.
make for future installs?
Always, every
In the
single
event
time.
No two guys are going to run the line exactly the same.
Yep.
So give yourself a few extra inches or a foot to help make up for that as the years go by.
Let's confirm. We'll throw the timer in towards the end of the service. That way we can explain it to Miss Old Lindley.
Power.
And we got power. All right. So one thing we're gonna, we already laid, we started over here. So this is our strand 1. You noticed he actually just hopped up. So he stopped right before the bird's nest. So I'm gonna wanna make a note in that work order. That's where the line stops, and it just hops right up to this line. So it's all one strand technically right now. Our next line of item, so we always put bulbs at peak.
You explain before we start installing up the peak, we find the peak bulb.
So that's what we're doing right now. Let me know where you're at.
I'm thinking I'm right here.
Right there?
Yep.
Works for me. What do you do on peak bulbs, Ryan? How do we know it's a peak bulb?
I always cut my peak bulb. That marks it. It tells you for the future that that's the peak bulb.
Show the camera how you're marking it.
I take my clippers and I cut it. If I don't have clippers, I take my pliers and I cut it. I cut the tabs off.
So
Right
that
in the
way you
middle
know in
hole.
the future that's your peak bulb. So we've determined that that's his peak bulb and how it's set up, but right now we're obviously not gonna leave it like this. So what I'm gonna do is just scoot all of this over as much as possible and to cover that extra slack. This customer particularly has gutter foams in her gutter guard, so you should just be able to slide it right inside of it. After you install a C9 bulb, you should always tighten this up. Well, I'm gonna tell you, there's 2 different types of bulbs right here. This one right here is a soft white. This one right here is a warm white. There's about 6 different colors of white, but every now and again when we pre-bulb a bunch of stuff, it's gonna have a soft white. So I'm gonna go to the truck and make sure I have that. I'm gonna do that while Ryan finishes the rest of this line.
When I'm installing on the side of a roof, I'm taking care to not damage the shingles. Every roof is different. Some are newer, some are older. Older roofs have a little bit less grip. So you have to make the decision at the time when it's best to pull a ladder around. So we're running our extension cord up to get to this upper peak, and I started with the female. We'll send down the male and plug into that strand that we just finished. I'm not gonna lock it in, I'm just using this here to hold it in place while I get my bulbs ready.
We're gonna go ahead and tuck this extension cord kind of following down the vinyl siding. And you tuck it in as best as possible. You always want to install with the removal in mind. So what you don't want to do is take binder clips and binder clip every single one of them. Again, we got to take them down because it's going to be snowy in the wintertime. So, and then also keeping in mind that it's not permanent installation, it's temporary installation. So it's okay if a little bit of the cord is showing like this. So I'm running my power right now. I'm going to snipe this. Again, always giving yourself a foot or 2 extra slack for future installs. I'm gonna add a male.
Starting the next strand with a male. Just like Scott described, double checking to make sure that the teeth are on opposite sides, that the rib side goes to the fat side of the positive. Now, keeping the takedown in mind, when I plug this in, I don't want it tied around nothing. I want to be able to take it off. You know, generally we're taking down in January and February. It's snowy and icy. I want this to be nice and easy. I don't want it getting caught on nothing.
When you're clipping these into the shingle, you find the loosest spot. Usually it'll go in between a set of shingles or between the wood and the shingles. And when you're scaling this roof, we do have the goat that is accessible, but you always want 3 points of contact. I got my foot, I got my other foot, I got my hip, I got my butt, and I got my hand.
Yeah, the one thing I like to talk about roofs is important, especially on an older roof. Not every roof that we work on is a brand new 50-year roof. Some of them got a few years on them. So when you're on a roof, you have to be deliberate on how you're moving around. It's not a game, it's not a goof-off show, you know. You don't want to be sliding around because once, you know, these granules start moving, you start moving.
So with this plug, obviously you don't want to leave it just dangling, but you also don't want to leave it right in the gutter because we're at a spot to potentially where an excessive amount of water could flow down. So what I did here was just put it right on the outside of the gutter. And there's multiple different ways. In this particular instance, what we're trying to avoid is having an excessive amount of water just splash down right on that plug. So being that it's on the outside, we shouldn't have any issues.
With his strand started, we found ourselves in a situation where we need a special tool to complete this roof. I can still continue installing because we already got our peak bulb lined up, so I know where I gotta be. I always cut my cord halfway between the bulbs, so it makes each new strand, you have the approximately halfway through each bulb.
When we do the renewal, if you're looking at the house, we got strand 1 on that lower gutter line peak. We cut an extension cord up to get us to strand 2 for the second story peak. And now we're cutting strand 3 to get us down here. And this is why we custom cut everything, because we can cut the extension cords and lights to however we want. So right now we're on strand 3. As a reminder, you always start your light strand with a male and you end it with a female, right?
When I'm carrying a strand up a peak, I give myself some slack to get to where I know where I'm going. I'm going to that lower peak. I'm gonna give myself some slack to get up there. When I get onto the roof, I'm being deliberate. Even on an old roof, I'm picking myself up and I'm walking. Once I get to the peak, I have a spot where I can rest. And I'll try to find my peak bulb.
So now what we're doing, we're about to end strand 3. We're gonna cut power and add a female to finish this line, but we gotta get power to this third line. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put an inline right off this peak right here, and it's gonna get us power to this back one. You can add inlines while power is installed. It will not hurt you. So the difference between SBT1 and SBT2 is the thickness of your extension wire and the thickness of your socket wire. So this is the socket wire that the actual bulbs are on. So SBT2 is just a thicker gauge wire as opposed to SBT1. So as you can see, I have this big floppy extension cord. What you don't want to do when you end it is just, you know, stick it in there and then have, hold on, I can get this in there. And then just leave it hanging like that. So instead, you take that excess and you can kind of fold it back into the clip, right? And then now you could just stick it in the shingle. And it just makes it a little bit more cleaner.
When I'm installing a plug, especially when it gets colder, I'll take the tip of my pliers and push on the back of the cord to get the vampire teeth to bite into it before I close it off. When it's warm, it goes in like butter, but the colder it gets a little bit more tough. Now we're gonna start laying out the cord for the yard stakes. We definitely don't want to use any of that pre-bulb stuff we have. We pay good money to have a guy do that. So we're just going to use these this empty wire. We'll lay it out and bulb it and clip it as we go along. The way we set this up, if the homeowner in the future decides that they want to take the lights all the way back, it'll be super easy. But for now, we're going to kind of have it stop where the roof lights stop. And I'm not being very precise. I'm just guesstimating, and I'll wind up any excess when I get to the end after I start installing. You don't need to waste too much time trying to figure out how to unspool wire. We're putting an inline in to run power over to our yard stakes. So this is our main power cord. This is the cord that comes from the timer up to start our roof lights. And we're gonna have some yard stakes starting here, so we need a little extension to get there. That's what makes it nice and neat and clean. So these females are called knockout females. They've got a little open side on one end and a tab on the other. We're gonna knock out that tab, all right? So now I can put this right in the middle of the line. Same deal as before. Make sure your ribbed side is on the fat end, but the females are really nice. They give you a cheat. It says ribbed on the side that the ribbed is supposed to go on. So I find my ribbed side. If you can't see really well, you can use your fingernail and feel. One's smooth and one's ribbed. So now I'm cutting my extension to my yard stakes. And like we discussed earlier, oh, I thought I threw some nails in there. As we discussed earlier, we want to give a little bit of slack. So I'm not going to plug this in right now. If I had power on, I'd have a hot wire. So I'm just kind of lining everything up. But I'm definitely going to give myself a little bit of slack. And when you just saw I'm checking everything, I'm splitting my wire. I'm checking my teeth in there to make sure they're not on the same side. Pushing my wire in. Inside of each plug, there's a little divider that keeps the wires from touching and arcing, which causes GFI tripping and all kinds of stuff that we don't need. So you want to make sure you push it in there good. I can start right here. I'm going to give myself an extra foot, okay? That way next year if Johnny starts over here or starts over here, we got enough. But we'll take a picture of this and put it in the profile as well, that the lights start right at the edge of the house. This is your C9 yard stakes. What we use is approximately 5 inches tall. When you're doing the installation, you install the socket first. There's a line for the wire, and then the bulb. Make sure the bulb's seated properly and threaded in there. These get tricky sometimes. You can misthread them and then the bulb won't light up. Once you got your first one started, you can go nuts. Try to keep your cord as tight as possible.
You don't install with slack.
You don't install it with slack so you have even spacing as you're going along. Likewise, if you have a straight line, periodically stop and look at it to make sure your bulbs aren't going like this. They're going in a straight line, right? All right, so we're adding an inline into this yard stake strand here. Just like we did off the main power, we're doing it off of this cord. That'll give us power to this tree. So I'm cutting an extension cord to get us up there. And just like with any extension cord, you want to give yourself a little bit of slack just for future installs. Because maybe that plugs over there next year. I got enough wire to get up to the tree.
So what we're doing here is, instead of this plug just sitting right on the ground like this, it could cause, you know, damp moisture to get in between the plugs. So what we're going to do instead is just lift it off the ground a little bit, and you can take a zip tie and then zip tie it right to this yard stake. Try to sit it right on top. That way the plug's not just laying on the ground, so if there was a pile of water in this area, there's not going to be any issues. So one little note is, again, just keeping, anytime you have a plug, we got to figure out like the natural progression of like where water could and couldn't be. Obviously we have a downspout right here. Now this downspout's covered, but like in between seams on the downspout, if it's like if it's an old gutter, if it wasn't installed correctly, you could have water pouring out. So keep it away from the seams. And then also we got all this landscaping abed. And again, I'm no surveying engineer, but it looks like there could be a potential of water flow going right here. Trying to avoid that, I'm just gonna I'm gonna tuck it right behind there. And it's a little bit cleaner too. You don't have the plugs facing, you know, the customer, and it's hitting a little bit neater. So another thing when we're installing mini lights, again, or cords just in general, anytime there's a male and female going into each other, you want to keep your plugs off the ground. In this particular instance, when you're installing these mini lights, what you don't want to do is keep it loose and like that, because then your strands are going to start falling. That's an installation tip, but from a tripping tip, you don't want to keep this female locked up like that, because then you got holes exposed where water could be dripping and down inside of there. So instead, throw your cap down, tuck it behind that cord. When we're doing these tree wraps, anytime you're doing branch wraps or trunk wraps, you're keeping these mini lights nice and tight. So when I pass it to Ryan, I'm keeping this last strand tight, and he's doing the same thing on the other side, so it's never droopy. I'm gonna keep that tension there. And then also what you notice is all of our gaps are the same size approximately, right? So you want to keep it consistent going up the whole tree. You see these little tags on the end of the mini lights?
Don't leave them on.
Don't leave them on, take them off. So generally there's a couple of different strategies. What we're doing right here is an inside branch wrap up 15 feet high, which is 2 stacks high. As far as power goes, we ran our main power at the bottom, and what our plan of attack here is to be able to just plug in to the end of these mini light strands. Now you can go a few, 5 into it together. Technically you can go, how many, Ryan?
You can connect as much as 50 strands
You can
together.
connect as much as 50 strands into it, but for the sake of how it's going to look, you're not going to connect 50 different mini light strands. So my plan is to use this to power a couple different branches, and then same thing over here. We're going to have some more female plugs on this way to go up the different branches. Now that's one way. Another way to do this, if you had just, you know, several different branches, is before you even start installing the mini lights, you run your female up here. And so you have a female with a 3-way connector here, and then you wrap it around, and then you can do an inline off that extension with another 3-way to give you power. So that way you have 3 plugs here, 3 plugs here, and then you can go up any different direction. All right, so we have to get power to these hedges in front of the garage over here. And we're gonna plug it in to our main extension cord right up to the front door. So again, when you're installing extension cord, you always start with your female, which is the end of your line. Someone's gonna grab this. I'm gonna just wrap it around like a thick branch so I can just wheel it out and tie it off. This is just temporary so I can quickly run the power. And I'm also gonna run it behind, likely behind the bushes, but again, I'm just getting a pre-sized extension cord for right now. So I'll come this way, all the way here. We're not doing any of this. We could potentially do these in the future. I don't think we're not gonna run power to it, so. Okay, I'm gonna start here. Now, I'm gonna pull my extra slack now, because now I'm gonna go back to my original starting point and put all my cow ears in. So let's go back to our starting point. All right, so this set of hedges that I'm right here right now, I'm just gonna run it to about right here, because all of the mini lights are gonna be connected, so we don't have to run power all the way to the end. We just have to run power right here. So I got my little extra slack there, and we're also gonna run this little fella behind here. I got my little excess here, you know, that's enough excess right here. I got my cow ear, cow tail, whatever you want to call it. And we're just going to throw that excess right here. We're also going to provide power to here. Again, I'm going to just pull my little excess. So there's always a little, so I'm going to throw an inline right here to give us power to this hedge. If you continue running it, don't pull too tight because you don't want to pull your excess there. I'm going to do another cow tail right here. Always a little extra. And then continue this strand down here. And then we're gonna eventually, what we're gonna do is we got our main power cord here. We're gonna throw an inline here, and then our extension for the hedges, we're just gonna put a male on here and plug it right there. And the reason for that is let's say we are having tripping issues. The reason why I like these hedges to be separate from the roof is because we can easily come back here and unplug it and we can unplug like a set of mini lights and examine them and leave them on for the night. And so if we unplug the hedges and everything else is being lit up and it's still tripping, that eliminates some of the things, and that's how we diagnose some of the issues. So I'm ready to cut this. A little extra slack. Boom. I'm gonna throw a male on this end and then an inline on this main power cord. So when we're installing these mini lights, what you don't want to do is just go, you know, put that on the tree. You don't leave cords just hanging like that. Your male and female, again, anytime you have male and females, they should be off the ground as much as possible. Again, when we're installing, we try to not leave the female exposed up like that because it creates a little cup and the water can eventually find its way to the electricity and trip the GFI. So instead, you install it downwards. So what we would do in this scenario is just take it around your twig somewhere up here. It's downward facing. Now we can install. So we're installing bushes. Generally, we had, like when we're doing thick trunks or you know, trunks that are about this big, we're doing 4-finger spacing. When you're installing hedges, we're gonna kind of go down and up, like a swirl, down and up. And as far as your spacing is concerned, you're about a little more than a hand's width away. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So this tree is really grabby, like no matter where I put it, it's pretty much holds the mini lights. Sometimes different hedges are different, so you might have to grab a twig and anchor it down, and that's what anchoring down is just wrapping it around one point, wrapping around another point, and then you can work your way back up. It stops this part from flopping all around. One of the most important parts is when you're connecting these is two things. One, you want to make sure they're all the way pushed in. If you install them like that and they're just sitting in hedges, water can find its way and cause potential tripping issues. So you obviously push them all the way in. Another thing is we always tie them around to stop the gap. So if you notice, the gap between these two lights is very small, and then when you plug in a line, now look at the gap. So we always try to hide those gaps, and how to hide those gaps is we always tie our mini lights together, and you just knot them together. Keep in mind pushing it all the way through, and it just shortens that gap a little bit. So realistically, I could just plug this right into here and leave it like that, but we could run into potential issues if this just hanging down like that and then it's close to the ground and water could potentially get in between these 4 different plugs here. So what we're going to do instead is just run a little baby mini extension and install it like this. That way, again, it follows our same line as the end of the female not filling up like a cup, and we're putting it down. And we'll just zip tie this. Like so. So on this set of hedge, what we did was we did the U of M back and forth. This particular one, because it's so twiggy and there's a lot of anchor points where the lights aren't gonna fall off, we're gonna do what's called a balloon wrap. So instead we're gonna go left or right and work our way up, So we'll start back here. Again, keeping our plug off the ground. Like so. And then on this over here, come over here, Scott. We got to loop back the other way, so we're just gonna do a little anchor point here so we can go back to the next direction. Now we're gonna go this way. Yeah, that's good. So we're connecting our mini lights. We're gonna tie them together and make sure they're squeezed in all the way. And again, our spacing on something like this, we're gonna keep it consistent going all the way up top. You don't want this spacing, you don't want this spacing, you want kind of a little more than a hand's width, So now what we're doing is we actually just pulled power from our yard stakes to get power to this tree, and it's all off the cement. It's not gonna cause any issues, but oftentimes when you find trees like this, if you wanna come up here and see these binder clips right here, is if the binder clips aren't there, obviously you're gonna have a huge gap between this strand and this strand. They're all kind of falling down because there's no anchor points right here. So on these ones that are really sliding, you just anchor them to where you need it to keep your spacing as consistent as possible, right? And so now the idea is keep your spacing consistent all the way up to the top. Obviously it's not gonna be perfect, but you wanna keep it as consistent and as matching as possible. On a tree like this, we're gonna probably do a couple more strands, come back and adjust some of the gaps, maybe use a couple binder clips. Yep. So when we're installing trees like this, what we want to do is you have your lead guy who's keeping the mini lights plugged in, and then also keeping it away from other things of that nature. And then the guy with the pole is the one anchoring them down and doing the actual install. You want to keep those lines nice and tight. What's going to happen with this tree is it's going to eventually start caving in, which is fine. And then when you're anchoring down, or when you're going to mount, depending on how big the tree is, will depend on how far you grab. I'm not gonna grab here and start wrapping it around because you have no control on where you want your lights to go. So I'm going about 1, 2, 3, about 5 feet down, and then I'm gonna start installing. And as you're installing, you're just anchoring them down as best as possible on the stickiest of the twigs. One of the things you want to do is when you're installing mini lights, kind of like halfway through the install on a certain tree, shrub, or bush, is halfway through, just step away. Don't look at what you just installed. Step away about 10, 15 feet or so without looking at the tree, and then you look. And that kind of gives you an idea on how everything looks. Is it even spaced? Is strands falling down? Do I need to move the lights up and down? So it's just a little tip or trick when you're installing tree, shrubs, and bushes is install a little bit, walk away from it, look at it and see how it looks. What are the customers looking at it? Walk in the street when people are gonna be driving up. How does it look? And then go back to installing it. So what we're gonna do here is we gotta wrap these columns. Something to note is you always wanna start your columns in the same exact spot. So we started this one right here. On the right side, we're gonna start the same exact spot the other time. And you also note I have this strand kind of holding this plug in place so it's not loose. You wanna keep them very tight and you wanna keep them the same way. You notice how they're slanted this way? We're also gonna install the same thing going around the same pattern. You don't want one going one way and one going the other way. You want them both the same direction. A lot of the times on columns, Ryan just did it, is sometimes you have to install twice when you're installing on columns like this, because you gotta find your correct spacing. Because you could easily fit one strand. A lot of the times you might have to wrap it a couple of times to find your exact spacing. So Ryan already did it once. We're gonna do it again to find that correct spacing in order for the strand to fit the whole exact way. So if you notice on this column obviously has a downspout, which makes the column a little bit thicker. So we're gonna have to increase the spacing on this column as opposed to that column in order for it to go all the way up. So we just finished the job. What we are going to do is just start cleaning up. So you can look around and there's just clips and bulbs everywhere. We're gonna clean up all of that, and then we're also just gonna take our blower and blow off some of the sidewalks where we installed and clean it up and make it look nice. We don't want to leave mulch on the sidewalks and things of that nature. You have anything to add?
I was just going to say, so you're saying all the mulch that we kicked out of their bed, we're going to blow it off back and make it look nice?
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea, Scott. Yep.
All right, Lindley, we just finished up the install. I just wanted, we made sure all the bulbs were lit. We install over 10,000 bulbs a year. So every now and again, we did our best to verify everything was lit up. But the only true way to tell is at nighttime. So if you have any issues whatsoever, you can call our office and we try to come out within 48 hours for any service calls related, okay? We did the roof line, front roof line and lower garage side. We did the 2 columns. We did the branch wrap. We went a little bit higher than the 15 foot. I just thought it would look a little bit cooler. So we added a couple more strands there. And then we did the C9 yard stakes all the way around your landscaping. And if you want to come over here, Lindley, a couple of notes. We did plug in baby Jesus into here. So it's going to come on and off with the timer specifically. Just make sure you watch your step. Obviously, it is a tripping hazard. So if you have any, if your little one's coming out here, just be aware of that, okay? We did do that one. Because I think it will tie in the rest of it, because you have a big tree there and kind of a big tree here, all wrapped up into it. And then one other important thing I wanted to show you, if you want to step over this cord here, we do have this couple extension cords. We have one extension cord running from our main power right up through here. So in the event that, you know, you're coming around here, just be careful. You know, walking around. Do you think it's going to be any issues, or would you like us to tuck it around, or is it good just laying here? I figured it wasn't that high of a traffic area, so we just kind of went right in the middle here. And then there's one more over here. We got our extension cord that's powering the roof over here. That's going straight up here, and then you have one down here that's powering the yard stakes over here. Okay? This is your timer. So I'm just going to kind of show you a brief overview of it. It's currently set to come on at 4:30 and shut off at 7:30. Okay? So I'll just run through the quick thing. Not that, you know, a lot of these times if you do have issues, just call our office. We can kind of run through it, but I'm just going to show you a quick function on it. If you want to come down here and check it out. We got manual to kind of change the different functions of it. So this is always on. Your lights are on right now. They're always going to stay on. The next function, auto on, off. The lights are always going to be off. And then the next function is auto off. So right now, if it's on auto off, it's going to come on at your program set time. Okay, so it's on auto off, which means that it's going to set on whatever timer we had set it on. So now they're good to go. Does that make sense? If you have any issues whatsoever, just give us a call. Give our office a call. Or call Scott and have Scott call me. So that's there.
That one plug for everything?
Just that one plug for everything. It's they're all LED, so they're drawing very little power. You're probably, usually most of these residential lamps are 10 or 15 amps. We're probably pulling about two.
This is just the heat stuff.
Yep, this unplugged right here is heat. So if you needed to, we can actually move this over here. And then when you do want to plug this in, you can go direct into that other one.
Okay, perfect.
That way it's not going to, you don't plug it in the timer, because then the timer's only, and that was for baby Jesus right there. So we just took that off there. Okay.
Yeah.
You have any questions for me?
No.
Okay, perfect. And then it looks like I showed that you had already paid, so we don't have anything to worry about there. And then if anything comes up, just give us a call.
Okay, great.
We appreciate you having us out.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, so we are all finished up with this job. What we're doing now is just packing away all of our material back in the truck. And we're gonna do one more final walk around. We got most of everything from there, but we still gotta walk around. Right before you think you're ready, good to go, don't leave. Before you have everything packed up in your vehicle, go back and do one more walk around to verify all of the lights are working, to verify you didn't leave any equipment behind. And then do an equipment checklist real quick and verify you have your pliers, plugs, anything that you pulled out. You can go through your list and make sure you have everything set up before you leave the job site. That's how you install Christmas lights.